Can you put my focus on? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Cedar Lane. Good morning, Cedar Lane. How are you all this morning? Right? And a little bit cold. Yes, wet and yes. Well, whether you're joining us in person or from home, it is a joy to be with you in worship together today. I'm the Reverend Ali Kofi Bell. My pronouns are he or they, or my name and title, Reverend Ali. And I'm honored to welcome you to this time of connection and celebration. Visually, I am a dark-skinned, short, black, transgender man with short black and gray hair and black glasses. I have on a multicolored stole made of ties and a blue shirt and a gray suit. At Cedar Lane, we are a community where love works. That's right. We strive to embody a beloved community by creating a space where everyone, regardless of backgrounds, beliefs, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, documentation status, or life experiences, are truly welcome. And if you're new or still feeling a little new, we'd like to connect with you. If you're here in person, please be brave and raise your hand. And if you're joining us online, please be brave and introduce yourself in the chat. Hello, I see a few hands. Let's give them a nice, warm Cedar Lane welcome. After the service, you can join us in the room right behind you near the exit door that is the fellowship hall. It's a great chance to deepen connections. And if you're new, feel free to pick up a yellow mug, because at Cedar Lane, yellow means hello, and you'll see a bunch of people with white mugs, and the white mug means? Yes, say hello to everyone with white or yellow mugs. And today, as we gather for worship, let's embrace the lively, multi-generational spirit of our community. Feel free to use creative materials to stay engaged throughout the service. And if you need support, our caring ministry team, led by Angela Wall today, is here for you. Angela's right in the front. And today, we were scheduled to have Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed with us, sharing his wisdom and presence. Unfortunately, a double snowstorm in Canada has kept him grounded. He has sent along his sermon and prayer, and they will be delivered to you today by this worship team. We are all saddened that the weather has kept us from worshiping with Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed. We do have another special guest with us today who has volunteered to join our team in his absence. Some of you may recognize from work in this area, from the Church of the Larger Fellowship, or in her role as a member of the UUA Board of Trustees when she had a little UU viral moment from the last General Assembly. She spoke love to the trans community after a discussion on a business resolution. Reverend JeKaren Bell, she, her, is a queer womanist and lifelong UU religious professional. She currently serves as a minister at the UU Fellowship at Gainesville in Florida, and she is also my wife. Now, in the spirit of love and connection, let's greet one another. Turn to a neighbor with a warm hello, or if you're online, say hi in the chat. My pack? That's...
Good morning. I am the Reverend JeKaren Bell. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a cisgender queer Black woman with shoulder-length locks, wearing teal glasses, a black dress, and giant gold flower earrings. Today we offer a litany for survival by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone.
For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice.
For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk.
For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us.
For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive.
And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not return. And when the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning.
And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed.
But when we are silent, we are still afraid.
So, it is better to speak, remembering
we were never meant to survive.
Good morning. My name is Clark Ritz. My pronouns are he and him, and I am your worship associate for today's service. I'm a tallish white man with a very traditional navy blazer with brass buttons and very non-traditional long hair that goes down to about my shoulders. As Kim Jones kindles a chalice, I invite you to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. It's our UU tradition to light a chalice as a symbol of our shared faith and community. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in the chalice lighting words. We light this chalice in the spirit of community, in the spirit of freedom, and in the spirit of thriving. May we work towards realizing beloved community in our lifetime.
Please stay risen, right? And there is a verse in our first opening hymn that's risen. Jesus is in our midst here. This is the old favorite spiritual, African-American spiritual. Let's sing it unapologetically, although we have different spiritual beliefs here. It is very apropos of this service this morning. Good morning. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Michael Holmes, and I am the Director of Music and Arts here at Cedar Lane. And my pronouns are he, him. And let's sing this together. So. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the
Please be seated. The scene, a dimly lit library, books scattered on the table. Ava sits at a long wooden table reading. A cup of coffee sits nearby, forgotten.
Only I could talk to him.
Ava holds her head in her hands for a moment, and when she lifts her head and rubs her eyes, Frederick Douglass stands before her. Dressed in 19th century attire, his gaze is sharp, filled with curiosity and authority.
Where am I?
Oh my, okay, I'm dreaming. That's not real, I'm dreaming. Oh.
I assure you, young lady, I am quite real. Now, where have I been brought?
Well, you're in the future, the year 2025 to be exact.
Well, the future. And what has become of my people? The struggle.
Oh boy. So slavery was abolished, but racism didn't disappear. It evolved. We had a civil rights movement, laws were passed, but injustice found new forms. Mass incarceration, economic oppression, systemic racism, the struggle never ends.
Oppression is cunning. It wears new masks, but its grip remains.
Exactly. And now we fight on many fronts: race, gender, class, sexuality, disability. The term we use is intersectionality, thanks to scholar Kimberly Crenshaw. It means that these struggles are connected. We can't free one without freeing all.
Intersectionality, a widening of the battle lines. In my time, I fought for the enslaved, for Black men to be recognized as men, and yet, even then, I knew freedom was not singular. I stood beside women's suffrage, though many could not see the link.
Exactly. Today, we recognize that Black women, queer folks, immigrants all face struggles shaped by multiple forces. Justice just isn't about race or gender or class. It's about all of them.
So we have made progress, and yet you still fight?
Yeah, voter suppression still exists, police brutality still exists, economic inequality, but now we have movements. Black Lives Matter, feminist uprisings, disability justice, LGBTQ plus rights. The fight is broader, but so is our resistance.
And your fire has not dimmed. That is what matters.
Ava's phone buzzes. She checks it, an alert for a protest downtown.
There's a protest happening right now. People are in the streets demanding justice.
Then go. Then go. The past has guided you, but the future is yours to shape.
Thank you. Thank you.
She grabs her books and heads toward the door. When she turns back, he is gone. The library is silent, but his words remain.
And we will sing our children out after this hymn, 1053. How could anyone, after the first, is there a verse in here? Okay, after the first time we sing it, the children can go to the makerspace and make something awesome. You'll see Reverend Dayna in the back.
Thank you, Reverend Daldeeps. Have it with me. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone
this sacred time to share our joys and sorrows, let us pause, take a deep breath, and ground ourselves in this present moment. With open hearts, we welcome the fullness of human experience, our joys and challenges, our griefs and hopes, trusting that in this community, none of us journeys alone. From within our Cedar Lane community, we remember longtime member Andy Streich, who died peacefully in his Erie, Pennsylvania home on February 6. He was 68. A celebration of life will be held in the spring at Cedar Lane UU. More information to come. We hold in our hearts Padma Krishnaswamy and the family and friends of her aunt, Ms. Radha Chellam. Ms. Chellam died in Chennai, India on February 9th at the age of 89. She is much loved and will be deeply missed. Prayers of peace and blessing from Ms. Radha Chellam are welcome. A celebration of life will be held for Paulette Skalka on Sunday, March 2nd at 3 p.m. in the chapel at Cedar Lane. Those who knew Paulette and would like to attend are welcome to join her family. A reception and light refreshments will follow. Please contact Michelle if you would like to let the family know you are coming. We celebrate with Leslie Bacchus and Greg Cassidy that this past Monday in Qingdao, China, their daughter, Janet Cassidy, gave birth to their granddaughter, Avery Elowen Cassidy Sobola. Mother and daughter are doing well. Grandparents are over the moon. We celebrate with Louise Stomorowski, who just returned from a 7-week visit to Crete, Greece, to join her daughter, Christina, and son-in-law, Alexander Jared Goulet, and 3.5-year-old granddaughter, Clara, and welcoming her new grandson, Alexander Atlas Goulet, who was born on January 16th. Expanding our circle of care beyond our doors and into the wider world. We mourn with the family and friends and transgender community at the news the horrific torture and killing of Sam Norquist, a trans man who was murdered by multiple acquaintances. We hold in our hearts all those affected by violence, war, natural disasters, and the ongoing climate crisis, both here and around the world. We continue to pray for the return of land to the people of Gaza and humanitarian aid for all in the region. In this moment of silence together, you're invited to rise in body and or in spirit and speak the names of loved ones that you're holding in remembrance, or to share their names in the chat. Now we invite you to come forward and participate in a ritual of connection and remembrance to honor the moments that touch your life. On the table to my left are stones waiting to be chosen. Let the stone you lift and place into the water nearby represent your celebrations, remembrances, burdens, or prayers of love and healing. May the ripples they make remind us that our actions and our love extend far beyond ourselves. Just as their waves spread across the surface, our love spreads across the world. You're welcome to come forward now.
In the stillness of this moment, before the release of the next breath, in the pause between heartbeats, before thought once again tramples over intuition, let us sense thy presence move among us along the web of interdependence, which lovingly but firmly binds us to each other and to all that has ever or shall be.
As we gather in this sacred space, we're invited to invest in Cedar Lane's mission and vision. The offering we take today and every Sunday is more than just financial support. It is an act of commitment to this beloved community and to the values we hold dear. Through our generosity, we empower Cedar Lane to be a place where love works, where justice is pursued, and where all are welcome. Cedar Lane also relies on the pledged financial support of each of us. Your financial generosity sustains our programs, strengthens our community partnerships, and allows us to grow in faith, service, and connection. Whether you make a one-time gift today, support our Share the Plate partner, or renew your commitment through a pledge, every contribution plays a vital role in strengthening our community and advancing our mission. Today, we are honored to share the plate with CASA, an organization that builds power and improves the quality of life in working-class Black, Latina, Afro-descendant, Indigenous, and immigrant communities. They began as an immigrant justice organization in Maryland and have now become a national powerhouse with over 155,000 lifetime members across 46 U.S. states. CASA creates change with its power-building model, blending human services, community organizing, and advocacy in order to serve the full spectrum of needs, dreams, and aspirations of its members. CASA has also been a major figure in providing Know Your Rights training in our area. They've worked with the county and also distributed information through flyering neighborhoods. They have a tip line to report raids and other ICE encounters. They also have a hotline for legal assistance. They host citizenship clinics, ESOL classes, and they have work centers. It is actually quite amazing the extent of CASA services. On top of all that, CASA was one of the plaintiffs in the case CASA versus Trump, where they successfully protected birthright citizenship. Last week, we held a discussion after service about what Cedar Lane could do now for immigrant justice. Supporting organizations like CASA is one thing we can do. By partnering with them, we extend our impact beyond these walls, helping to create a more compassionate and just world. Whether you give online, by text, by mailing a check, or by placing your gift in the offering plate, every contribution, no matter the size, makes a real impact. Let us give generously, knowing that together we have the power to make a difference. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Please join me in the responsive reading 579. You will see the words on the screens. You may also find them in the gray hymnal if you so choose. And when I go like this, you know that means it's your turn, right? Okay. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without the plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of the waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power receives nothing without a hand. It never did, and it never will. Find out what people will submit to, and you found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those they may oppress. Thank you.
Douglass, rise up. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Born a mystery on a floor of clay. Then they took your mother's miles away. Still she'd walk for hours just to hold you tight. Sadly she'd be gone by morning light. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up. Men would strike you and they'd watch you bleed. Still you broke the law and learned to read. Then you freed yourself from slavery's birth. Then you wrote about this hell on earth. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up.
Those who profess to favor freedom and yet appreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Frederick Douglass.
You who freed from the earth, poor white neighbor's spelling book. Those the death of the southern strife. While some white man thought he still owned your life. Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up, rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up. I'm not even fit to shine your shoes, but in Gethsemane, what's left to lose?
I am hopeful. I have no doubt whatever of the future. I know that there are times in history of all reforms when the future looks dark, when the friends of reform are impatient and despondent, when they met with treachery where they expected fidelity and defeat where they expected victory. I, for one, have gone through all this. I have had 50 years of it, and yet I have not lost either heart or hope.
Rise up, Frederick Douglass, rise up. Rise up. 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 Rise up.
I think we should make it a law that no minister has to go after the choir. You all are great, thank you. Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed first served Cedar Lane as a young intern minister in 1977. For 26 years, he co-ministered with his wife, Donna, in Rochester, New York, and Toronto, Ontario, where they now live. As an affiliated faculty member at Meadville Lombard Theological School, he co-founded its Sankofa Archive, focused on UU people of color. His many positions in the UUA included vice chair of its Commission on Appraisal and Ministerial Fellowship Committee. He served as the UUA's International Office Ambassador to the EUU and as a president of the Canadian Unitarian Council. He has published numerous histories about the African American presence in Unitarian Universalism, among them Black Pioneers and White Denomination, the Selma Awakening, and In Between, a memoir of an integration baby. In 2019, Reverend Mark Morrison-Reed received the UUA's Award for Distinguished Service to the cause of Unitarian Universalism. So, we can say that Mark Morrison-Reed is a person who has seen a few things. And so he sent his sermon and prayer along just to make sure that we had everything we needed in case the weather didn't hold. I treated it like, in case of emergency, break glass. No emergency, no need to break the glass. Alas, the weather didn't hold, and here we are. So when I got the news last night that the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed second plane was canceled and they couldn't get him here until this afternoon, I turned to my wife and said, there is no way I can be Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed. Are you kidding me? He's a legend. She has assured me that no one expected that from me. I appreciate that she keeps me grounded and humble. In his instruction, I read his materials and realized right away that he was right. I would need to tweak it a little. The sermon that he planned to deliver could only be delivered with fidelity by someone else who is a historian and who has a special knack of weaving story with history. I, on the other hand, am not a historian, so I will rely heavily on his accounts. I will now present a message that is both his and mine. The first line of his sermon reads, "Join me in singing happy birthday to Frederick Douglass." I'm game. How about you? All right, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Frederick Douglass. Happy birthday to you. Ooh, come through, choir. He goes on to write, born on February 14th, 1818, he would have been 207 years old on Friday. He died in D.C. in 1895, and his body then convened to Rochester, New York. There, a service was held at the Central Presbyterian Church. The eulogist was the minister of the Unitarian Church, William Channing Gannett, or Gannett. People say it both ways. 2 days after Douglass's death, Gannett had sent a telegram to Helen Pitts Douglass offering the Unitarian Church. Following up a day later, he wrote, "The Common Council is arranging and has telegraphed you. How this responsibility alit upon Gannett, I am not sure, but it was natural for a Unitarian to be involved because Douglass had many connections to Unitarians of long standing, including Susan B. Anthony, who was a member there and had spoken at his funeral in D.C. In his autobiography, Douglas recalls that it was from Theodore Parker's pulpit that I made my first anti-slavery speech in Roxbury. He also writes, among my friends in this country who helped me in the early efforts to maintain my paper, the North Star, which was founded in 1847, I proudly count. The list he offers includes Unitarian Senator Charles Sumner and Reverend Samuel J. May. Elsewhere, he mentions disagreeing with his revered friend, Charles Sumner, as later he would disagree with Susan B. over the 14th Amendment. He also disagreed with Parker and John Brown on the wisdom of Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859. That did not reduce his admiration of any of them. Of his visit to Parker's grave in Florence some 17 years later, he said, looking upon the little mound of earth that covered his dust, I felt the pathos of simple grave. And then goes on to offer what amounts to a eulogy. This is the end of Mark's writing. Considering what was at stake, universal suffrage, the right for all to vote, racial equality, Black people are actually people under the law, as well as how the South would be brought to the Union, I find this an interesting fact that Frederick Douglass still held Susan B. Anthony and Sumner in high regard after their disagreements. Sumner believed in a colorblind constitution and opposed laws that explicitly protected Black people. Sumner wanted to move on from the Civil War quickly, while Douglass wanted harsher punishments for the Confederacy. Sumner was an ally to women's rights activists and opposed prioritizing Black male suffrage over women's suffrage, while Douglass believed Black men's voting rights were more urgent and understood that white supremacy wouldn't allow for equality if the root cause wasn't evaluated and then rectified with actions that uplifted Blacks with the property and voting rights, giving us a chance at the generational wealth that had been stolen from us for centuries. He argued that Sumner's idealistic view of colorblind laws would allow white supremacy to persist, and as we know, he was right. Susan B. Anthony was dedicated to women's rights to vote, and at an 1869 suffrage convention, Douglass argued that Black men's suffrage was a life and death issue, while women's suffrage, though important, was not as urgent. Anthony angrily replied that Black men should not receive rights before educated, property-owning white women. This disagreement deepened racial tensions in the suffrage movement, with Anthony and Stanton sometimes aligning with racist rhetoric to further their cause. There are serious disagreements amongst a group of people who cared for each other and their causes. I mean, these disagreements were deeply rooted to who they were. Douglass' disagreement with Sumner over the 14th and 15th Amendments, with Parker and John Brown over the raid on Harper's Ferry, and with Anthony over the prioritization of Black male suffrage did not mean that he abandoned them. Instead, he stayed in the struggle, understanding that justice requires the tension of diverse perspectives and that relationships are more powerful than any single ideological difference. I can imagine today how their own biases, understandings of race and needs could cause a fracture in their relationship that would be difficult to repair. Many of you are involved in social justice. Take a minute just to think about how when these issues come up, invariably someone feels like their group has been even further marginalized. Douglass reminds us that we have to be willing to stay in the movement when it is difficult and when it is easy. It is not lost on me that the issues of those days are the issues that we are currently facing today. Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed states, They were all abolitionists, but the relationship he had to Unitarians continued in the years following the Civil War. Dr. Clay McCauley, a Union Army veteran who had been imprisoned, was a minister of All Souls in D.C. for 3 years beginning in 1877. During that time, attendance grew almost to the capacity of the new building and often included Frederick Douglass. In 1880, Reverend Rush R. Shippen had been the secretary of the AUA, and he was called to All Souls. Having been active in the anti-slavery movement, he later supported women's rights and African American education. The latter led to his involvement with the Ladies' Sewing Society of the congregation in establishing what would evolve into Myrtilla Minor School, which later became a part of DC's public education system, eventually evolving into the Miners Teacher College, and later emerging into the University of DC. Concern with education also led Shippen to serve as a trustee of Howard University. There, he served with Douglass. Douglass was on its board from 1871 until his death. And it was as a trustee that Douglass introduced the English child welfare advocate Mary Carpenter when she spoke there in 1873. She was a Unitarian. He had met when he had to flee to England in 1860 after his book was published. Because of the Fugitive Slave Act, he could have been taken back into slavery. Douglass's presence at the American Annual Meeting in June 1888 is noted in the Unitarian Weekly Unity, which also mentions that he spoke later that week at the Free Religious Association gathering, as did Susan B. Anthony. Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed goes on to write, in 1893, during the Chicago World's Fair, Douglass spent 6 months in the Windy City. Jenkins Lloyd Jones, the founder and minister of the Integrated All Souls Church Chicago, we really like that name, says that Douglass, during the fair's duration, was a constant attendant. While there, Douglass resided with the congregation members S. Lang and Fannie Barrier Williams. The African-American couple were prominent both in the congregation and the city. Fannie wrote to Douglass afterwards, "We shall always feel that our lives more made larger, better, and truer by your presence in our home." And on February 20th, in 1895, during the National Council of Women meeting in Washington, D.C., Douglass was escorted onto the platform by no other than Susan B. Anthony. Shortly thereafter, upon returning home, he had a massive stroke and died. He was 77 years old. His funeral was held at a Metropolitan AME church where he and Helen Pitts Douglass were members. On Tuesday, February 22nd, in Rochester, New York, the eulogy was delivered by William Channing Gannett. In it, he offered a broad recounting of Douglass's life, a summation of his achievements, and in spewing laudatory prose characterized him thus: "This large mind, this large heart, his royal manner," said Gannett, "bids us remember that the spirit knows no color, that man is man not by the lightness or the darkness of the face, but by the worth of the soul." He then calls for a monument to be erected to Douglass, and let 6 words traced to Douglass' own lips as their apparent source be graven on it: "One with God is a majority." So ends Mark Morrison-Reed's words. Today we gather to reflect on the legacy of Frederick Douglass and the Unitarian Universalist connections that sustained and shaped his work. We gather not just to remember, we also gather to learn from the past, to see the ways in which the struggles of Douglass, this is time, mirror our own. We gather to ask, how can we, like Douglass, keep the standard high, trusting that the world will come to it by and by? Our faith, rooted in interdependence and intersectionality, calls us to recognize that our liberation is bound together. The UU shared values remind us that our work for justice, equity, and transformation must be done in relationship, not in isolation. Frederick Douglass did not go at it alone. His Unitarian allies, despite their imperfections, helped sustain his work. Even in death, Douglass' ties to Unitarians endured. The networks that connected Douglass to Unitarian leaders, Black women organizers, and white allies shaped the trajectory of racial justice movements a long time after his passing. The founding of the NAACP, the leadership of Mary White Ovington, the activism of Hester C. Whitehurst Jeffrey, the work of Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, and Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, all of these efforts flowed from the foundation Douglass helped to lay. And intersectionality tells us all that oppression is not a single issue struggle. The Unitarian suffragists and abolitionists, though flawed in their racism and paternalism, still helped shape a movement that benefited many large marginalized communities. Their work was imperfect, but justice does not wait for perfection. Today, we find ourselves in a very familiar political climate where voting rights are under attack, racial justice is contested, and divisions threaten our collective progress. The same debates that fractured alliances in Douglass' time persist today. Who gets justice first? Who must wait? How do we prioritize liberation when multiple oppressions are at play? As Unitarian Universalists, we know the answer. We must not leave anyone behind. We are called to fight voter suppression, to stand against systemic racism, to support reproductive justice, to protect LGBTQIA rights, to dismantle economic inequality, because, as Douglass taught us, one with God is a majority. But we don't do this work alone. We don't do it alone. Like Douglass, we must be bridge builders. Like our ancestors in faith, we must acknowledge our shortcomings while still pushing forward. We must live up to our heritage of justice and transformation. Douglass, in his final words to Jenkins Lloyd Jones, said, "You are standing for a great and holy ideal, my brother. Keep the standard ever as high as now, and the world will come to it by and by." May we keep that standard high. May we recognize that the struggle for justice is long, but we are not alone in it. May we live into our shared Unitarian Universalist values of equity and justice and interdependence so that generations from now, others will look back at us and say, they stood for a great and holy ideal, and the world moved forward because of it. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Thank you, Reverend Dolly, for delivering that message, both yours and Mark Morrison-Reed's as well. Let's sing all together, answering the call of love, which used to be standing on the side of love. For the more inclusive language, we have the new words on the screen here, but you're welcome to turn to 1014. Just remember on the chorus, answering the call. We do it. Shall we rise in body and spirit?
The promise of the Spirit
faith, hope, and love abide. And so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are standing in the song of God. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
In our worship, announcements aren't just updates. They're invitations to live our values and make a meaningful difference. Each opportunity we share is a chance to connect, to grow, and to take action in ways that reflect who we are and what we stand for. So, I'm going to tell you once again about the Kiplinger lecture. Wonders and Worries in Genetic Engineering, Saturday, February 2nd. So now is the time to actually, February 22nd. Now is the time to actually listen. February 22nd is right around the corner, okay? 3 p.m. It's next week. Look at that. Next week in the sanctuary. Have you ever heard of Savior birth? Savior sibling births? Join us February 22nd at 3 p.m. when Dr. Jeffrey Kahn, director of Johns Hopkins Berman Institute of Bioethics, will discuss the ethics of using genetics to choose the traits of children. What are the implications for the use of human gene editing tools? It will also be streaming at bit.ly/Kiplinger lecture, Kiplinger lecture.
Also, the Living the Mission Task Force invites you to engage in important congregational discussions about Cedar Lane's priorities over the next couple years and our goals. So your input will help guide our community's shared life for the next several years. There are upcoming discussions Sunday, February 16th, which is today. Right? Mm-hmm. I believe in the chapel, is that right? After service? Okay. All right, so today, and then also Wednesday, February 19th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. There'll be a Welcome Wednesday potluck, and then on Sunday, February 23rd, 12 to 1:30 in the downstairs family lounge with pizza and childcare provided. So, your chance to get some input.
They can just go get some coffee and then go to the chapel from 1 to 2?
That's my understanding.
That's how I think. That's how I would do it. So, what? Oh, from 12 to 1?
12 to 1.
12 to 1. Okay. Just go, drink your coffee, go to the chapel. They'll let you go when they're done. It'll be good. And I have some more news for you because I guess I am the bearer of unfortunate news today. Bishop Barber can't make it on next Sunday. But Reverend IB will be back. Woohoo! And Reverend Dayna is preaching. So come, welcome Reverend IB back after his sabbatical. It will be great. I hear that there might even be some cake. Cake. All right, you come, we'll give you some cake. So come on and welcome Reverend IB back. I am sure he'll be so happy to see you all. And now our benediction. This is Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed writing. It's number 580 in the Gray Hymnal if you'd like to read along. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others, once felt. It inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice of our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. However, together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Go now in peace and go making peace, and bow to the mystery.